So, what happens when a sitting U.S. Congresswoman gets indicted by the federal government? It's obviously a huge story. But in the case of Representative Sheila Cherfilus McCormick, the charges are really just the tip of the iceberg. This is a story about a community that feels left behind, a multi-million-dollar mistake, and what it all means when a district's voice in Washington, D.C. suddenly goes quiet. It all seems to have started with what the government itself calls a simple clerical error. But how does a mistake, even a massive multi-million-dollar one, spiral into a federal indictment for things like fraud, theft, and money laundering? Well, that question is really at the heart of this entire situation. Make no mistake, the stakes here are incredibly high. Congresswoman Cherfilus McCormick is facing a whole battery of federal charges that could absolutely end her political career. But to really understand how we even got to this point, we've got to take a step back and look at the community she was elected to represent in the first place. And that brings us to Florida's 20th congressional district, because you see, you can't really grasp the full weight of these allegations without understanding the history and the people who are at the very center of this story. So, District 20 is actually one of the poorest districts in the entire United States. We're talking about a majority Black, Brown, and Caribbean population, and it's a community that, for decades, has felt pretty much financially ignored by its representatives. To get the full picture, you really have to look at the legacy of the Congresswoman's predecessor, the late Elsie Hastings. On one hand, he was a powerhouse, a real voice for policy, fighting for voting rights and social services. But on the other hand, there was this massive void. He'd vote for funding in other districts, but reportedly never requested grants or earmarked funds for his own people. And this quote just drives the point right home. I mean, while policy is absolutely crucial, the lack of direct federal and state money really left the district in a tough spot financially. This whole situation set the stage for a special election after his death, an election that was ultimately won by Sheila Cherfilus McCormick. Which brings us right back to the indictment and the one single event that seems to have kicked off this entire federal investigation, a huge $5 million mistake. Just look at that number. Over $5 million. Back in July of 2021, FEMA accidentally sent this exact amount of money. And the big question at the core of this whole indictment is, where did that money go and why wasn't it ever given back? So the money came from an overpayment on a COVID-19 vaccination contract. It went to a company called Trinity Healthcare Services, which was run by Cherfilus McCormick and her brother. The source of this multi-million-dollar windfall? Put simply, a government clerical error. And this right here is the absolute crucial point. According to the indictment, this wasn't treated like some honest mistake. Prosecutors allege that instead of calling up FEMA and saying, "Hey, you sent us too much money," a plan was put into motion to keep it. So if they didn't return the money, what does the government claim they did with it? Let's do what they always say: follow the money and break down this alleged scheme. Okay, so the indictment basically lays out a three-step path. First, the $5 million lands in the company's bank account. Second, it's allegedly laundered through this complex web of shell companies and personal accounts. And third, that money is allegedly spent on personal luxuries and, this is key, on financing her campaign for Congress. And the details of the alleged spending are pretty striking. I mean, prosecutors point to things like a $109,000 yellow diamond ring, other personal expenses, and, most importantly, funneling a lot of that cash into her 2021 campaign. This right here, this is a text message that's actually included in the indictment, and it perfectly illustrates the alleged straw donor scheme. The idea is to take large amounts of cash and break them up into smaller checks from different people, the straw donors, to make it all look legal and hide where the money is really coming from. So why does all this campaign finance stuff matter so much? Well, because Sheila Cherfilus McCormick won her Democratic primary, the race that basically handed her the seat in that district, by just 5 votes. 5. So prosecutors aren't just saying the financing was illegal, they're arguing it was what made the difference. Okay, so with the indictment filed and all these details out in the open, what's been the immediate political fallout? Not just for the Congresswoman, but maybe more importantly, for the people she represents. The resulting charges are, well, they're extensive. They cover everything from the initial theft of government funds to money laundering, campaign finance violations, and even filing a false tax return. It's a really comprehensive slate of allegations coming from the Department of Justice. And the immediate result of all this is that Congresswoman Cherfilus McCormick has been removed from all of her congressional committee assignments. Now, this is standard procedure in these situations, but the impact is profound. And this quote really sums up the blunt reality. Without committee assignments, a representative's ability to shape laws, to fight for funding, to have any real influence, it's severely limited. For a district that already feels overlooked, this is just a devastating blow. And all of this leaves us with one final, really big question. After decades of feeling financially neglected, the people of District 20 now have an elected representative who has, for all intents and purposes, been silenced. So, in the halls of power, who is left to speak for them now?